on what is the current status of the GMAT. How has it changed, if at all, because of the pandemic? Is it back offline now or online? What are plans going ahead? What are measures that you may have taken to ensure that the students have a seamless testing experience? And most importantly, what are you doing to uphold the integrity of the test taking process for our students and our B schools who give so much weightage to this test?
Aradhana, Gaurav, if you don't mind, I'd just like to, compliment GMAC for one thing. When 2020, when COVID struck, I remember a lot of applicants reaching out to us and wondering how they're going to make it, how they're going to give the test, how they're going to give the exam. And we did reach out to GMAC saying, what are you going to do? And, how are they going to cope? And I think you gave an option at that time. Initially, I'm sure it must have been a struggle like it was for all of us, but you all gave that option of, giving it from home with all the caveats and things. So I think compliments to you all, how you turned it around. That was really beneficial for us.
Thank you, Dr. Kamath. That's very nice of you to mention. And Aradhana, I'll be happy to share some of the changes that have been happening since COVID struck. So when actually COVID hit us back in 2020, no one was prepared, right? And we actually thought for a moment that it's going to last for a couple of weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And that's the irony, because we were not aware as to what is the gravity of the situation. I would say that our product team did a great job in coming out with an online option that was available for candidates to be able to take the test from home. So we realized at that point of time, when test centers were shutting down, that candidates can't move. Candidate mobility is an issue. Most workplaces shut down. So people went back to their own towns and cities. People who were working in larger cities went back to their own hometowns. How would one actually write the exam? And if you don't write the exam, how do you apply to a B school? So the product team worked very quickly, very innovatively, and we managed to launch the online version. The first one had a few less bells and whistles, but we did manage to get everything introduced within the online version that's available in the test center version. And after passing a few hiccups, we noticed that the trend in India was actually the most encouraging globally. Almost close to 40% candidates in India were opting for the online option. And this itself is proof that, it's convenience not only for candidates, but it also helps schools, because you have your deadlines and you want people to be able to apply. And just because you can't write a particular exam, you shouldn't end up missing out on the entire year. So we took this situation very seriously. We worked hard and we made sure that candidates got the online option. It was as convenient as possible. Another thing I would like to mention, I've been with GMAC now for over 10 years. We've always traditionally used a passport as a form of ID. But for the online option, we also introduced the Aadhaar ID as a form of identification for candidates, because we realized that, if you're sitting in a tier 2, tier 3 city, it's going to be very difficult for you to come back and apply for a passport and then write the GMAT exam. So, of course, we had to ensure that the safety norms were in place and that there was no scope of anything going wrong in terms of identification. We made it absolutely foolproof. And again, we were very happy to realize that a number of candidates started opting for the Aadhaar ID instead of the passport. Most of them did not have a passport. So I think the fact that makes me feel happy today is that you could be sitting anywhere in India, in any town, any city, in any corner of the country. And most candidates, most people already have an Aadhaar ID. Most of us have it. All you have to do is use that ID and you can give the GMAT online from wherever you are. And to answer your other question, Radhana, while we had introduced it initially temporarily because we thought, this is going to be something that candidates are going to require till the pandemic gets better, we've also realized that this is something that we're going to look at as a more permanent solution, because no one has the answer about how and when the pandemic is going to end. And there could be successive waves, and we just don't want that candidates should have to suffer on account of this. So we are going to continue with the online GMAT option. And this option is exactly the same as what's available in the test center in terms of the exam format, optional breaks, and all of that. And for a number of candidates, it's also been a very comfortable testing experience because it's available 24 hours a day. You can choose your time slot. Some people might want to take it early morning. Some people prefer late evening. You don't have to travel to a test center. Safety and security of your home. Coming to the second part of your question in terms of integrity, we take that very, very seriously. And there are two parts to this. One is, of course, in terms of security. Some of the candidates on the call today might be aware that there was a security breach a while ago. We heard about it from the cyber cell unit in the Delhi police, and we worked very closely with them because we take this extremely seriously. And we proactively went out and ensured that the cyber security folks had whatever information they required from our end to make sure that anybody who was trying to use unfair means was identified. And I think we, at our end, canceled scores of 133 candidates globally, out of which 108 were from India. And my piece of advice to candidates today would be, of course, I'm sure nobody wants to take such shortcuts, and everybody has a high level of integrity. But do keep in mind that, not only have these people been identified by the local authorities, their details have been shared with schools globally. Admission teams globally now have the details of the candidates who had used unfair means. The police has it. They're taking criminal action against these candidates. So I would say that's something that people should keep in mind, that if anybody approaches them or they think there's some kind of a shortcut, it's not worth it. And please don't even fall into this trap. The exam is something that you can easily crack with the right amount of prep. I mean, you're talking to some of the best people here on this call who can tell you all about the prep. And the other part I wanted to touch upon, since you mentioned, Aradhana, on test optionality, I think this started back in 2020 when COVID had hit us. There was uncertainty amongst schools. In the US, there were a number of schools that became test optional. Important to mention here that test optionality was more for the local US candidates, candidates who were based in the US. That was not so much for international candidates. So that is the first bit. Second bit, most of the good schools, the highly ranked schools, like the ones you have over here on the call today, have never ever compromised in terms of quality of intake. So while GMAT is just one of the many parameters, that is something in which schools have not compromised. So today, if you're looking at getting into a good program, yes, you have to work hard. You have to crack the GMAT as part of the process, amongst a number of other things. Test optionality, and if we talk about India in itself, I think there's hardly been any B school that has used test optionality. SP Jain, Mumbai is over here, and I know a number of other top programs in India, whether it's the executive IIMs, ISB, they have not at all been test optional or done anything in terms of looking at compromising the entry of candidates. And last bit I wanted to mention was that in terms of expansion, the GMAT, while it's used globally across B schools, even within India, candidates should be aware that AICTE, which is the All India Council for Technical Education, recognizes GMAT as one of the 6 exams that you can write for applying to a PGDM program. So while you look at the local entrance exams and the Indian entrance exams, you can also use the GMAT to apply to any B school of your choice within India.
So there has been an increase, Gaurav, in the number of test takers globally, and as well as an increased acceptance by these schools for the GMAT as an exam?
Absolutely. And in fact, we saw a huge shift happen in end of 2020, early 2021. I think as soon as the US election results were out, I think by December 2020, we saw a huge upswing. And Q1 of 2021, which is January, February, March, we saw the highest ever number of test taking that took place during that quarter. This is partly due to the new shift in the political change that took place in the United States of America, more welcoming towards international candidates. I think it was also the pent-up demand. A number of candidates had kind of, postponed their plans and they deferred their plans for going to a B school. So we saw that flow come in. But we are full up. Yes, we are seeing a very positive momentum, and numbers have definitely grown.